Bing bong. My Bing is not working. It used to. It does sometimes. Kia ora tātou. Thank you, everybody. Let me get to the right page.
Should I record?
Welcome back, everybody. We're going straight to item 2.3, consolidating the 2024-34 LTP solid waste capital projects, which is page 168 in your agenda pack. Welcome, Mo. Welcome, Anna. Thank you for being here. Let's make sure we get to the right page. That's the right page. So on my reading, this is pretty straightforward. Perhaps you can just give us a bit of a rundown on what's involved and on we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we appreciate the opportunity to consolidate two of the solid waste capital project budgets, one for renewals and one for the improved level of service. There's no change to the budget itself. It's literally just consolidation of both of them, which puts a little bit more ease on us when we're planning the projects, a little bit more flexibility. So the spend will still be on the same type of projects. It's really just having that flexibility of combining them.
Thank you, Anna. Mo, anything to add?
Yeah, just would echo Anna. Sorry. Just echo Anna's comments. No change. It's mainly for process efficiency all round.
Thank you.
It's a rearrangement. That's pretty much it.
Thank you.
The work will be the same.
Donna, anything to add just from the finance team? No, it's all pretty straightforward. Thank you. Questions from Robin and John Morrissey, please.
No questions. It feels like it was a very concise report to correct a minor administrative thing that you need our support for to make your life easier, and I'm really happy to just move it.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder. Any other questions? All those in favour? Thank you. Well done. Good work.
Thank you.
Do we have you for the next item? No, we have Sian and Brett. Thank you. Sian is here. I know I saw her next door. Brett, are you with us online? Welcome, Sian.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Ed has. I can't see it on my screen. No. Okay. All right, Sian, you're the boss. You're the boss. You're in charge.
Sure, I'm ready for that responsibility, Your Worship. Good morning, elected members, Your Worship. Just a fairly straightforward report, and my colleague Brett will also be here to support me in the presentation of this report today on the Council's water supply bylaw. I'll just briefly summarise the report, and then Brett and I are happy to answer any questions that elected members may have. The Council's water supply bylaw is due for review in the next few days. Staff took a really high-level quick look at it in light of all of the recent changes that have come out from central government around the delivery of water services, and realised that if the bylaw was to remain in place, it would probably need to be quite substantially amended. But also, we're not sure what is going to happen in the next 12 months precisely in terms of both the legislation, whether there will even be a need for the council to have a bylaw, and how our water services are going to be delivered. So what staff are recommending in this instance, which is not something that we would often do, but in this particular circumstance it seems to be appropriate, is to not review the bylaw at this time, but rather use the provisions that exist in the Local Government Act that allow for a bylaw that hasn't been reviewed to still continue in force for another 2 years before it then becomes automatically revoked. During those 2 years, we expect we will have greater clarity, both around the legislation, the need for a bylaw, what the council's role is in the delivery of water services. And during that time, if indeed the council does need to have a bylaw, we will have time, excuse me, to prepare a brand new bylaw that fits with the legislation and what's required. So in the meantime, the bylaw continues as it is. In particular, we've highlighted in the report that that we thought would be of interest to elected members is that this is the mechanism by which the council imposes water use restrictions during periods of shortage or drought. So that's an important feature of the current bylaw. That's all I propose to say. Brett, did you want to add anything?
Just that we believe the bylaw is sufficient to operate for the next 2 years until such stage as we have the, how can I say, direction of where we will be going and what rules will be applying for water services.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Sean. Questions, Peter? And then.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. You've just answered my question. The bylaw is good enough for us for the next 2 years and will get us through, and I'm happy to move the motion.
Thank you, Peter. Rika?
You also answered my question, which was, is the bylaw robust enough to get us through the next 2 years? So thank you.
Delhi, were you just seconding? All right. I'm going to go Delhi because she snuck a hand up before you did, Terry. So thank you. So mover Peter, Delhi seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. Much appreciated. Right. Terry, I'll allow you to move or second the next item if you like. Since it's near and dear to your heart. Okay, item 2.5, Freedom Camping Bylaw Amendment, which is, I think, going to be very welcomed based on some of the discussion. Absolutely. Leslie, welcome.
Good morning. So before I start, I'd like to introduce a new team member, Anisha Nadar. She's joined our corporate planning team. So yeah, she's just been with us a couple of months and she's helped me to prepare this report.
Welcome, Anisha. Nice to see you here. So if you are speaking, just the right button, the red light will come on. Okay, thank you, Leslie. Anything that you can tell us? We've got the report in front of us. Anything you'd like to add?
I take the report as read. It is this amendment. Some of you will recall during the bylaw, the Freedom Camping Bylaw deliberations, staff agreed and committed to review this particular designated place once the car park at Island View Reserve was completed. The car park is now completed. The community board has requested that we make this change. We've assessed it as being of minor significance. So we are recommending to you that we can make this change without going out for the usual consultation process that is required under the LGA.
Thank you. Terry, are you moving or asking questions?
Oh, I'd like to move it too, but yes, just thank you very much for the work being done on this. It's been a bit of a while in the making, and I think it's a great move, and this board supports it. So I'd like to move the motion, please.
Thank you. Seconded, Gary. Any other questions? All right, all those in favour? Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
That was, how was that, Anisha? Pretty tough. First council meeting. Okay, item 2.6, budgeted funding request, drinking water standards upgrade project. And this is on page 187. Welcome, Luke.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors. I'd like to talk briefly to this particular report today. Put in simple terms, prior to the LTP planning process, we already had a contract in place for construction for this particular project. Staff put forward the construction schedule and as part of the request for timing for funding. But as it does happen throughout these processes, the funding was then spread across 2 years. So the purpose of me coming here today is to request that the money gets brought forward back in alignment with the agreed contract and delivery schedule. I'll take the report as read and available for questions.
Thank you, Luke. Any questions? Peter, please.
Yeah, thanks for this, Luke. As I read the report, page 189, at the bottom of page 189, it's talking about the rate impact. And there's a rating impact of $9.62 per ratepayer. Yeah. So what that means, if I'm understanding things correctly, Donna, you might need to help me, but if I'm understanding correctly, that means immediately for the 25-26 year that we are already adding in $9 rate increase that's not currently in there in our LTP. Am I correct on that?
Through the chair, I'm happy to answer that question. So yes, for that 1 year, you will be, because it's that the rating impact has been budgeted from the time that the project was originally in the LTP. So that has been budgeted, but when we bring something forward, that means that we have to fund depreciation and interest and loan repayments, that year early, and it's usually the year following the project. So that's why it says 25-26. So yeah, hopefully that explains it.
Yes, thank you. So I think I've got my understanding clear. That would therefore mean that when we come to do the annual plan for 25-26, we have already loaded up additional rates that are not currently in the 25-26 year. And we know we're going to have a struggle to keep rate increases down. So I think there's probably two things that come out of this for me. Firstly, if we're going to add a $9 rate increase because we conceptually are bringing a project forward from our LTP, I think I would like to have an option, or have outlined to me what are the options for what projects could be pushed out from the 25-26 year, so that we end up with a neutral position on a rate increase. And I think if I generalize from that, I think we as a council, that's the way we should be thinking. We have invested so much time and energy and effort into building the long-term plan that it has to be a plan that we work to and we work on all the time. And I understand why it makes sense from a pragmatic, practical point of view to bring this funding forward so that the construction can carry on. But I think we have to think about the impact that this is going to have on ratepayers, just as a general principle. So if we want to add stuff in, we need to be asking ourselves, what are we going to take out, or what are we going to push out? And I think in this sort of context, the paper for completeness perhaps could have outlined to us, and the way we can make this ratepayer neutral is by deferring that footpath or defer whatever it is. And then we as council can then sort of say, yeah, look, I understand it makes sense to bring this forward, but let's put something out so that we're not actually adding to the rate problem that has been flagged to us that we're going to be starting off in the new year. So
Peter, sorry, we've got a couple of other questions, but I'd be slightly concerned about the appropriateness of asking the report writer for this to then step over into another area of budget and start making comments on another area. I think that needs to probably go back to Donna or the chief executive to see, and I'm hearing what you're saying, and this is a really good point. I'm just concerned that it's not the responsibility of this report writer to bring in footbars and stuff and try and make that balance.
Sure, but I think it's something that we need to be having in our mind.
Understand the thinking behind it. So would you like to make a comment on that, or Donna, just in terms of Peter's suggestion about balancing things out?
Yeah, I think it's music to our ears, and you'll see two gentlemen behind me nodding furiously. And we just had we just briefly conferred about what that action may be, and we just need a little bit further discussion around how we might actually give effect to what Peter's requesting.
You happy with that, Peter? Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Robin, and then Delly, and then Terry, please.
And I guess the other thing, the other shoe to Peter's foot. Sorry, I apologise. On page 189, you have option 2, do nothing, and there's some disadvantages. And some of those disadvantages feel like they've got hidden dollar signs in them. Like, for example, potential contract variation, dollar signs, potential additional costs, dollar signs, potential non-compliance, dollar signs. And so would you, obviously you haven't, because I've sprung it on you, not given you fair time to do that, but would you say that the $9.60 per ratepayer is kind of on a par with what it would cost us if we were non-compliant with the water standards and having to pay our contractors more, or have non-contractor availability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
So I think the largest impact would be that you'd have a contractor that is set up and is delivering at pace right now, and we then having to say, sorry, you're going to have to pause until next financial year. And which means that they would likely have to disestablish from site to go juggle their work schedule. There'll be contractual implications. There's a whole host of different things that you couldn't quantify easily until we actually had to go down that pathway. And we weren't keen to open that conversation up too early.
Good question. Thank you, Robin. Delly, please.
Pretty much what Robin said. I'm very concerned about the non-compliance, given how strict the new rules are around water. And I was going to propose, listening to what Peter's saying, and I think that's a conversation for a workshop or something to see whether or not there's some savings to be made somewhere else. But I'd like to move that we accept this. Okay, and Robin's seconding me.
Thank you. Terry.
Yes, and thanks, Luke, for the report. Yeah, this is the end of a project that started in 2018. And like these two are the last two, and I think we really need to get them over the line. Masons have been a good contract on this and done the work. So it'd be great to get those completed. Hear what's been said about the depreciation coming early. But I think you spend up until May 25 is where all this money's going to end up and be spent properly. And we should do it now before we lose these contractors to another world, maybe. So fantastic. I support it.
Thanks, Terry. John Morrissey.
Yeah, look, I just want to say I so loved what Peter said. It is the way to do business. And I really hope all the councillors heard it. I'm sure they did, and the staff that are here. If we put something in, if something comes along, then something has to come out. We cannot continue to do what we've done in the past. So, Peter, best thing I've heard said at the council table for a long time, and that's the way business should be done.
John Grant, please.
Thanks. It took the words right out of my mouth, as the song would say. I just wanted to speak in support of Councillor Revel in the comments, and I'm very pleased to see the Chief Executive and other staff also nodding in agreement, and would like to see this adopted as an approach going forward, where if we are adding things in for very good reasons and very well put in the paper, but we also have something which says, well, to do this and to fund it, we have these other options for you to consider as well. And so whilst endorsing the need and understanding the logic of moving forward now, I would also like to see us have a piece of work added to this as like a footnote, if that's possible, or a amendment to the resolution, if possible, which says that that staff will consider ways and report back in regard to the savings to rebalance this in the annual plan.
Thank you, John. Peter, and then Rebecca, please.
So John just said it, would absolutely support the motion, but with the amendment or the rider that staff will come back to us with a compensating, whatever it is, withdrawal.
Rebecca?
Yeah, all of the things that have been said, absolutely. I mean, I know this is the tail end of a very long project that this council's been involved in, and a very good project, I think, that which has delivered really well for our communities across the district, but absolutely understand that, you know, going forward, it would be good to look at if something significant is going in, what it is that we can take out. Aside from the money, we've obviously got the capacity. I mean, I know we've got contractors that are delivering this project, but we're not overloading staff in terms of bringing this forward.
No, fully in the construction phase, so all the efforts with the company engaged.
Perfect, thank you.
Robin?
It's actually a question for Aileen, really. And so this is going to impact the budget for the annual plan. So in terms of capturing the request from that side of the table from all of us about making sure that that information about the taking in, taking out isn't lost, can we feel confident and happy that it's going to come up in an annual plan workshop, and you guys can remind us of this conversation and say, remember when you said, and we'll be like, yes, we did. Or do you think a resolution is useful at this point?
A resolution is always useful to signal an intent. But yes, we can talk to you probably tomorrow about this. And I am aware that will be plenty of carry forwards. So, you know, there is a sort of obvious kind of offset in amongst that package of work.
Are you comfortable that that is flagged for us because we've got some annual plan discussions?
You guys flagged. Are you happy that it's flagged already?
Everybody, really? So we've got some annual plan discussions that are staff are bringing to us tomorrow.
I just think it actually needs to be formalised, and I understand about holding it over for discussions, and I welcome those discussions tomorrow. But I believe that the resolution needs to be changed to ask staff to find a way to and report back to council to compensate for the additional cost by removing something else or moving it to a future timeframe. If the mover is happy to amend accordingly, then it will have my support.
So Delly and I moved it, but I'm happy as a seconder to have a additional resolution added on. Who's writing that?
Mm.
Oh, we can submit. And this might need a bit of titivating.
Mm.
We're just trying to.
Give us some
All
right, should we come back to that?
I think it'd be good if we can address it now.
All right. In that case, I'll take.
Can we consider to identify, please?
Yep.
I guess to answer that question.
Two, Councillor Connell and Councillor
You're
Sinclair.
happy with that amendment?
Sinclair?
I'm very happy with the addition of the years for which annual plan we're talking about, because that relates specifically to when the funding.
So I'd like
Gonna
to
be
put the
spent.
motion as read on the board. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks, team. Apologies for that. Item 2.7, October budget revision, page 192. And welcome, Hayden. Hayden, welcome.
Yes, so this is the October revision that the team did last month. I'll take the report as read. Generally, it's pretty early days in terms of the financial year. We've had a few months, only 3 months. So, and October also indicated that we're sort of still really early days. So it'll be in the next couple of months where we start to see expenditure really sort of climb, and it's where we'll really need to just keep an eye on budgets. In terms of OPEX, we had a bit of an increase. We've had increases in probably the major increase in expenditure has been through depreciation. So that's just the revals of our infrastructure assets mainly. In terms of the other expenses is the other one that's sort of moved, and that's largely due to software as a service. So basically software as a service, we can no longer capitalize. We have to expense it due to the change in accounting standards. So that's been sort of the major one, along with insurance, which has gone up more than we anticipated. I think there's been about 7% increase on what we sort of budgeted. So it seems to have gone up, and we had a small increase in one of the wastewater contract variations. So in terms of OPEX, that's basically where we sit. I think we're still largely on, we'll be largely on track. It's just you're probably really monitoring those other expenses, which is our major expenditure line. In terms of CapEx, in terms of the revision, the only thing that's really changed is there's been movements amongst the roading projects and the software as a service adjustment. So all of the other adjustments are out of cycles or carry forwards. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Hayden. Peter, you had a question? Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, thanks very much. Hey, thanks, Hayden. And I just want to acknowledge the work that you do, and also to acknowledge that you are, in this sense, a messenger. You are bringing everything together and presenting it in a way for us to understand. But I think there's once again, there's a really important principle sitting in here. And I go back again to the long-term plan and the energy and effort that we put in the long-term plan, because we're wanting to, for our ratepayers, we're wanting to put out a plan there that says, this is what we're going to do. And we create that expectation. And really what all of us want to be able to do is to look whoever it is in the street in the eye and say, yep, that footpath is going to get built this year, or yep, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing, because that's in our plan. So having belief, I think, is really important. When I look at the revision, particularly around to capital expenditure, where we're now in our revision saying that in this financial year, we're going to be spending, what is it, 68 million in capital expenditure. I look at that and I think, ooh, that's a big number, feels a bit bigger than what we've had before. Then I look in the Chief Executive's report and I see that as at the end of October, we have spent 9 million. We've spent 9 million of the 68 million. So that's 4 months have gone. We've spent 9 million, leaving 8 months to spend 58 million or whatever it is, the balance. And of course, we've got December, January, where we're not going to do much. And I can guarantee it's going to be pouring with rain in June. So we won't be doing much in June. So really, we've got 6 months to spend the 58 million. And I think, ooh, that's a challenge. Is this really a realistic forecast? When I go back to the previous financial year and our December reforecast in 23-24, the reforecast then was 67.8 million that we were going to deliver in the 23-24 year, $68 million worth of capital works. And according to the annual report, we got to about 55 million. So we fell short by 19% of our December forecast. When I look at the 68 million, we've only done 9, I'm thinking we're going to fall short. So what are we going to, what are those things that I know that we're not going to do, or that staff can tell us that we're not going to do just because we do not have the time or the capacity or whatever it is to deliver that volume of capital works?
Peter,
so I struggle with a belief.
Sorry to interrupt, but to be honest, it feels like this isn't a question that poor old Hayden should be. This is something that maybe should be addressed at the Chief Executive's report. And I'm feeling sorry for Hayden, thinking, "Whoa, what's coming at me here?" So
I think Hayden is aware of the situation.
He's the numbers guy,
and that's right. And that was my opening comment, right? So I'm wanting to make a point about we have to be able to believe the things that we're given. And here, it just doesn't feel like that belief. And perhaps the people who are behind these numbers are sitting here and sort of saying, hey, Councillor Revel, you've got it all wrong because of A, B, C, or D. But so my question is, have I got it wrong? And in fact, are we really on target to deliver $68 million worth of capital works?
Well, the point of the reforecast is to reforecast our end position, right? So that's the whole, we do one in October and usually do one in March as well. And that's the whole point of it, is to reforecast where we're going to end up. So probably pass the question to Mo. Or the Chief Executive.
Aileen's got a hand up and Mo, so let's tag team it, whoever, jump in.
So I think Councillor Revel raises some really good questions, and we're not going to deliver $68 million of CapEx. I think the challenge is to know which ones we're not going to deliver, which one is going to run into a consent problem, which one is going to run into an over budget when we go out to tender. So we actually don't know which ones we're not going to deliver. I suspect if we ask the projects team, they might have some suspicion about which ones they may not deliver. But this is such a big topic. I actually think this would be useful to take forward into a risk and assurance scenario and do a deeper dive into it. Otherwise, we could spend the next hour discussing the merits and the various projects and what's getting in the way of them when we've got a pretty large agenda to get through today. That would be my thoughts.
Thanks, Aileen.
I'd be happy with it.
Mo was just...
Yep. Through the chair, if I can please make 2 comments. One is, with a lot of these capital projects, there are also a lot of unknowns. And the best example that comes to my mind is the Matrangi wastewater plant upgrade. We never thought we will go for a second hearing. we thought everything will be sorted out in one hearing. Now the second hearing is in March next year. What that kind of thing does is basically push the entire program out. So you apply that across other projects. These are some of the challenges we face. And I had a discussion with Luke yesterday, and I'm going to steal a leaf from his book. He used a really good analogy. If you look at capex expenditure over the past several years, we've had challenges achieving the numbers, and we're trying to change that direction. And what he said was, it's like trying to turn a ship 180 degrees when it's already sailing. So we cannot do it in one go, but we can do it in increments. And we've got things in place to make that happen over the coming years.
Thanks, Mo.
Through the chair, I'd also like to add that from the perspective of delivering over a project life cycle, the first 6 months of a new LTP, the team is focused on planning and design, which is probably 80% of your effort, 20% of your spend. You then move into your construction phase, which is 20% of the effort and 80% of your spend. So it's not too surprising that we're not tracking at 50% spend at this time of the year. So from a delivery perspective, it does make a bit of sense that we're not at that level. We are absolutely slower than where we should be, but we've had a lot of change to work through, and we're going through that maturity journey for project management and delivery, which is that ship analogy.
Thanks, Luke, and thanks, Mo. Anything else, Aileen? Peter, does that help to give some clarity on that? Thank you. John Grant, please.
I just wanted to add a comment to Peter's really, and that is that I've found a couple of the questions today which have been raised are not necessarily challenges to the particular staff member. They are just broad views that are being expressed that I think is a very good governance process for those questions. And so I just wanted to make sure that staff are understanding that we're doing our role and asking questions that should be asked at this level, and it's certainly not personal to the particular people, and wouldn't like them to feel that way, because we appreciate so much the work that they do, and I think it's just a really healthy process.
Thanks, John. Good point. Okay. Any further questions? We've got. Yeah, so I'll move this from the chair. Items 1 and 2, receive and approve the budget revisions. Can I get a seconder, please? Delhi, all those in favour? Thank you. Thanks, Hayden. Much appreciated. And good questions, team. Well done. Item 2.8, feasibility of providing pedestrian access to Kopu Wharf. Page 203 on your agenda. Welcome, Lorenzo. Welcome, Derek. Thank you. We've got the report. Anything to add, Derek? Anything to add, Lorenzo?
Pleasing to see a boat down there being serviced this morning.
Many more, hopefully, to come. Yeah. Okay. We'll open it for questions. If you're happy to take the report as read, we'll open it for questions.
I asked the person that probably was most knowledgeable on this. I asked Adrian, what's the view of the community board? I said, because I really don't know. And he explained to me how the tide goes racing out and this and that and everything else. And after all consideration, I'm taking your words, Adrian, that what's being proposed is the way to go. So having got that advice, that must be it.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Delhi?
Just wanted to comment that I approve of the staff recommendations, and if we provide unrestricted public access, there are some implications around precedent setting for other places which are commercial and potentially quite dangerous locations.
Thank you, Delhi.
Yeah, just a quick one. Do they they know when boats are coming in? Do they book them in advance? Do they, because otherwise there are long periods when the wharf is unattended?
Yeah, they're all booked, pre-booked.
Right. So is there any idea what that timeframes are? Is it like every month or every 6 weeks or?
No, the boat operators will call Kopu Marine and do a booking, and it could be a week or it could be a couple of days in advance.
Right. So the wharf will be unattended for some periods of time in between boats. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, thanks. So I think if I recall correctly, I think I instigated the request for this report. I think, is that right, Derek? I did. And that was as a result of a lot of public comment about this beautiful new wharf that the ratepayers are paid for, and them not actually being able to do the sorts of things they would like to do, to run and jump off it, etc., etc. Having said that, I appreciate the thought that's gone into the report and the issues that have been raised in the report, and it makes sense to me. And my comment here is that this is understandable, and I should be supporting the resolution recommendation from the staff. I would just want to add to that it's not going to alter the fact that there's going to be a lot of people who think they would like to and should be able to go out onto the wharf and jump and dive and fish and take photos or whatever it might be. So my request would be that when we pass this motion, that there is some sort of clear public communication to people out there somehow, that clearly understand why we as a council have supported the motion that we're to maintain the split between commercial and recreational activities, and for the port wharf to remain unavailable, so that people can readily understand the decision. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. John Grant, did you have questions or comments? Please go ahead.
So when this paper came up and I started reading this, my first reaction was it's always easy to fall into the health and safety bucket, to stop doing things that the public really want. And we've heard this argued in other places. Whangamata Wharf comes to mind. Certainly Whitianga is another one where we've had similar arguments. And I then delved in and had a look at the original business case for Kopu Wharf, just to see how well we were doing according to the plans that we originally had. And there is quite a difference, I believe, between what was projected and where we are now in regard to the commercial use of the wharf. So I am left in a position where we're not hitting our budget plans from the original business case that was put forward. That underpins the reason that we did this. And then secondly, we are being inconsistent with the way that we treat some of these facilities between one place and another from a health and safety perspective. And I'm not encouraging that we bring all the others into line, because I think the weight of public reaction would be really strong. But I do challenge us collectively to say, we've created this asset, we've spent millions of dollars with the asset, and are we using it? Is it time to really sit back and revise our plan, and perhaps look at some wider aspects of private use rather than just straight commercial use, so that the asset is being used in a more public way and actively used, rather than sitting there as it is at the moment, waiting for things to happen. So I know that's a big broad brush statement rather than questions, but it does have a few questions in it, and you're probably not the appropriate people to answer them. And I appreciate that. It's just falling back into what we said before. So I guess specifically the question is probably more to the chief executive, and that is it time for us to do a review of the original business case and look at whether there are other avenues or opportunities from the way that we could use that facility for the benefit of the community?
Thank you, John. Do you want to respond directly to that, or you've got it noted?
Staff will confer on that and come back to you, but yeah, take your point that it's not being used the way it was envisaged to be used, and that there's some reasons around that. And particularly at the moment, we do need to make sure that in a few years' time, when business does pick up, that we still have the ability to actually use it as was intended. And we probably need to review what we do in the short term while we think we have a bit of a downturn in the type of use that might be using it.
Thank you. Adrian, Community Board, Thames-Coromandel Board Chair, did you have any thoughts or comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to comment, we as a board have only briefly looked at this. We've never discussed it and come up with a resolution. It was raised at our board on the basis that we feel that the whole structure out there has been underutilised, and it would be nice if people could walk out there and go fishing, or just go out there and take shots of the sunset or whatever. When you read that report that's come in, I think it sort of points out to us that at slack tide it's running at around about 3 knots, and outgoing tide it's about 7 knots. So you probably end up halfway out to a mussel farmer who fell off there. But my concern, real concern, is the lack of commercial use on that wharf. And to the best of my knowledge, and talking to Kopu Marine people, there has been one boat tied up there since 21st of June. So that is a thing, and I'm only hoping and praying that come Christmas time that those boats will come back down, those red boats will come back down from Helensville and ply their trade up and down to Pyro and backwards and forwards. And then we'll need to really look at how we're going to police public going down there, taking the bikes down there, getting on the boat, going to Pyro and then biking back down the rail trail. There's a whole new tourist venture just waiting to happen down there. And I note what Councillor Rebel said, that if you are going to close it, then you need to put up some decent signage to say why you don't have access to it. Because I, for one, use the commercial wharf at Whitianga to ply my trade, to take the cease across the harbour, and we don't have any problems, and we've got high up hoists and fuel things at Whitianga, and nobody comes along and says to us, oh, look out, something's going to happen. But I must say that taking a casket there seems to push people to one side very quickly. But I don't want to jump into this in the deep end of this and say no. But at the same time, I think you'll need to put up a very good public notice as to why the wharf is not currently available for people to walk down there. Owing to a lack of use to the wharf, somebody else needs to use it. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delhi?
2 issues there. There's the issue of a large and very expensive piece of infrastructure being underutilised. But I just want to mention also that in Whitianga, in the interim, while we look at the options of trying to get some of our tourist operations off the main sort of fishing wharf, if you like, commercial wharf, there is a barrier arm going in there. There will be swipe cards, and that is probably something, Adrian, that your business will need to have access to a swipe card so that you can get your hearses on and off the wharf. But there is signage and there is fencing. You can still access the commercial part, but there are definite attempts to keep people from straying into the area where they shouldn't be. So the latest thing is the barrier arm, which will be swipe card activated, so vehicles can't access that wharf without the right sort of swipe.
Thank you, Delhi. Aileen, please.
I'm just wondered if Derek or Lorenzo wanted to comment on usage.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity. There have been several boats up on the pontoon and the slipway's been used as well, admittedly not to the volumes anticipated. And as Lorenzo pointed out, there's a boat on the pontoon today.
Thanks, Derek. Lorenzo, any thoughts?
I was involved in the original business case. So that business case got superseded with funding that got, got confirmed by Kanoa. The reality is once they looked at the business case, there was a strong desire from the community to have public access, especially since we were going to close, or effectively close to the public, the existing boat ramp. So the regionally significant boat ramp and parking associated with it got actually added in to the scheme and funded. So the intention to address the engagement with the public and the businesses such as Fish and Game and a lot of other businesses involved in the recreational side was to look at the business case again, rather than kicking the recreational boat ramp down the road as a master plan, bring it in because it's sort of crucial for making the whole thing work. And then people will be able to use the access to the water for boating and for going along the pontoon for public access. That was the intention, and that's the thing that got the resource consent and the funding and put in place. In terms of utilisation, at the time of the business case and time of funding, we were in the sort of COVID time of uncertainty. The agriculture industry was pretty healthy, and some of the primary reasons in the business case were in water servicing, and the reason why I opened up with that statement about seeing someone there, actually that is the main primary intention of the wharf. However, there's other intentions of that wharf that are in the business case, which includes tourism, the opportunity for opening up for tourism and charters. So there is, in fact, it's almost encouraged for people to come forward with tourist and charter boat operations to operate from that wharf. It's quite different when you've got an organisation or a company running a business that's public facing, because they've got the obligations under the health and safety for their passengers, and council's got a system under their bylaw and their agreements to allow for that. So that was in the intention of the wharf. So it's in water servicing. It's pulling out boats. It's supporting the marine precinct as a whole, and that separation has actually been baked in. And we also took lessons learned from other existing facilities, such as Sugarloaf, where there is intrinsically a problem with interactions between the uncontrolled public recreational activities and the commercial activities, and it's health and safety, and it's also a nuisance to the commercial operators and to the recreational. At Whitianga Wharf, it's well known that that's pretty constrained there, and there's attempts of separation. The latest attempt of separation today and tomorrow, they're putting in a barrier arm to have controlled access. So there's user agreements with the operators or the people delivering stuff. So the council's got some control over that. And there are instances where, for a nuisance factor more than health and safety, private vehicles are parked on the wharf and people are trying to deliver ice and fuel and the like. So it's just a matter of getting things managed correctly.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Robin and then Delhi, please.
While I feel a vote on this is imminent, I do feel it necessary to point out that if we are going to be putting out any comms, it would be useful to remind the general public who are reading the comms where the funding actually came from. Because certainly when we were all down there and we had the ministers, the Thames Community Board, who was a funder, was the last to be thanked. And I feel like maybe that was indicative of us playing a very small part in the role of the funding. So that's my plea to you, Michael, I guess, whoever's going to be putting out the comms, that actually the amount that was paid by ratepayers was a very small amount compared to what was done by the taxpayer effectively. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Delly?
Might be a question not to be answered now, but Aileen, Mitch, whoever, is there a targeted plan of trying to encourage either tourism operators or boats or whatever to use that facility? Is there a marketing plan and are people actively marketing it?
Thank you. So you've taken that on board? Yeah. Yep, thank you. Thanks. All right, team, thanks for the good discussion, and Lorenzo and Derek, much appreciated. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Gary and Martin, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Much appreciated, team.
Can I just say thanks very much for exploring it thoroughly, so that we do have a good understanding as to why we're not making it open to the public. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Okay. We move to item 3.1, Chief Executive Report.
Okay, just checking in whether you'd like Hayden to resume his seat, or are we finished with discussing financials? Okay, Hayden gets a break then. Okay, so fairly standard material in the report, just around Cyclone Gabriel recovery. So on page 212, road to recovery, just to note that we'll do a closeout report for council around everything we've achieved through recovery, and we'll bring that probably in February, I think, and that's effectively the end of the recovery. And just to note that Steventown finishes at the end of March with us, sadly. I have tried to keep him longer. But that will really signal the end of the recovery, and just a reminder that a number of staff who were funded by the cyclone recovery money, that will be the end of that that funding at that stage. Just in terms of the local roading update, I feel like we've already covered this, whether it was in the Friday email to councillors or in a previous report, I can't recall. But just to note, there's been quite a bit of activity around speed management in the last few weeks. And as a result of it, Mo's intending to bring the speed management matter to a workshop. So councillors can talk through in detail around what's happening around speed management. As you know, the rules have been changed and there's still some interpretation of what they actually mean going on at the moment. And I see a question. Yes.
Sorry, just really quickly, it'd be really useful to have that conversation at a community board level as well, because those questions are still coming to the board regularly.
Can I just ask also on speed management at Regional Land Transport Committee, the new David Spears, who was Andrew Hawkell, flagged that there is some funding available. He wasn't specific about how much for the costs to councils of changing those speed limits. You've already flagged that, I think. Are we on top of that? Are we applying for some funding from NZTA to help with those costs?
There's funding available. I have no doubt we're applying for it. Did you want to comment, Mo?
Just one comment. Sorry, Ellen. We're getting a bit of mixed messages at the moment. Some parts of the organisation we speak to, they say there's no funding available. All of the costs need to be carried by council. And then there's other parts. I think it's a learning process for everyone at the moment. A bit of patience, and I think we will work through it.
The discussion at the Regional Land Transport Committee was quite specific, and it was that applications are open now and close on the 28th of February. Now, I'm happy to go back to Andrew Corkell and ask for more information, or somebody can, but he was quite specific in that meeting that there was funding available, but he wasn't specific about how much.
Yeah, you can leave that with us. We've got a number of matters we need to follow up as a result of the letter from Minister.
Thank you. So
No.
John, Grant, and then we'll come to you, Terry.
Sorry.
I thought we had taken a decision that we were not going to pursue, and I seem to recall Councillor Morrissey had moved or had put forward the view that we should delay any process around the new speed limits around schools of variable speed because of the cost to ratepayers. Or is my memory failing me?
It never got to be a motion. It would have been a good idea, though. I suggested that it was that sort of work was way down the track, and I wasn't afraid of becoming a non-compliant council.
I had voted for it.
Did you vote for it? I remember that motion. Did the staff get that motion?
That sentiment was relayed by myself at the Regional and Transport Committee meeting on Friday. So rest assured that that has been conveyed. With a proviso that we're not proposing to be a council that breaks the rules willingly and knowingly, because I'm not going to put my neck on the line for that, or our chief executive's neck on the line for that. But the sentiment has been, and we are not the only one that feels like it. We're not the only council that feels like it. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, just a question.
Terry, is it a question for Aileen on?
Yeah, Aileen, read around the pothole. I couldn't understand the pothole because there was a lot of money the government had put up for repairs on potholes, but it kind of says here that our potholes are low and it doesn't really kind of fit with our roading. Is there any comment on that?
I refer that to Mo.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that through the chair. What the government has done is reallocated the funding. They basically called operations and maintenance the pothole budget and said to council, you'll need to move all your money, including minor safety, to the pothole budget if you are to get any subsidy. And that's basically what we've done. It's been renamed, but it's for operation and maintenance work, but the government calls it pothole budget. We still do road maintenance.
Right.
Thanks.
So you got to do some work on that.
So while we're on roading, I just wanted to alert council to a matter that we may discuss in further detail tomorrow relating to preparedness for summer. We were advised recently that traffic control on Pepe Bridge would be reduced from 12 days to 3 days. We've reached out to Andrew Corkle, who has found some budget to take that to 6 days. But that's still 6 days short of what is normally provided for. His response to us was, well, perhaps council might want to fund the remainder. So we have taken it up with our local MP, who is raising it today with the Minister's office to see if we can fill the gaps, about 20k. So we'll have a discussion with that in relation to the summer briefing tomorrow with councillors. And in the meantime, perhaps our local MP might have found us some money in a drawer somewhere in Wellington.
Aye, good luck. Well done.
That kind offer for us to pay for it was repeated on Friday. So.
Yep. And I'll just take the rest of the report as read, if that's all right.
Thanks, Aileen. Councillors, any further questions for Aileen on the Chief Executive report? John Grant, please.
Can I cycle back to my usual question, just to receive a formal update in regard to how we are tracking on our RFSs?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, we've made changes to two groups. I'm probably a little bit behind where I would want to be before I go on holiday at Christmas. But what we will do in the interim is bring back a report to the community boards in February that is a transitional report. It'll be different to what you've had in the past, but it won't be the full completed picture that we're still working through that project on. And the change of focus for that reporting will be the query around the unopened, the jobs that were still opened. 3 months later, how many of those have now been closed? Just in reference for the bigger picture that we're performing pretty well on that. Mercury Bay at the board meeting last week, I had a look at that period that the board were interested in of 1,213 requests for service. Only 13 were still open. So it's shown that huge amount are closed. They might be closed later than the service level, but they're being closed. And I think those email improvements have helped with that too. So there's certainly been operational focus and an improvement there. There has been a slight reporting process, but the changes to our system has been a little bit slower. So that's probably where we're at now.
Appreciate all the work that is going on in this regard. But just as a suggestion, I think it would be quite good to have a summary of what you've just said contained in each of our CE reports.
Yeah.
Apologies, it's I was away sick and we ran out of time towards the end of the agenda, so that's an omission in this report.
Okay, Terry, can you turn that off? Thanks. Cheers. Kelly, please.
I'm usually the queen of grumpiness when it comes to our comms, and I would like to give a bouquet for the campaign around Motohi Cathedral Cove, which has popped up on my phone and in my inbox all over the place about preparedness for visiting the cove and expectations and where to park and all of those things. I think that's been a really good campaign.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, if there's nothing further, I'd like to move that the Chief Executive report be received. Can I get a seconder, please? Peter, all those in favour? Thank you. Thanks, Aileen. Okay. Mayoral Report, I'd like to move it be taken as read. It's on page something. 232. John, second it. All right. All those in favour? Thank you. We now move to item 3.3, and Councillor Grant, you flagged the need or your desire for a discussion around the need for item 4.5 and for that to be in public excluded. I might need to get some guidance and some input from governance and from Chief Executive on this. It is currently item 4.5. It is currently in public excluded.
Through the chair, I think Mo will be able to speak to the reasons why.
Right.
If I could start by saying that when there's any doubt on an item, the default position is to put it into public excluded, because councillors can always bring it out. If the staff decide to put it into open and councillors say, well, that should have been in public excluded, you can't put it back in. So I guess the risk, managing the risk, the safe position is to put it into public excluded to allow the conversation. In considering this, staff did weigh up the pros and cons of having it in public and having it in the public excluded. And there is one part that our recommendation is that we do need to have in public excluded, but not all of the item needs to be in there. So there's options about splitting the debate into a couple of parts and having a piece in open and a piece in public excluded, or there's the option of having it all in public excluded, but then bringing out the relevant parts that the councillors feel they would like to bring out. And if I could just ask Mo to speak to the particular piece that we think needs to be debated in public excluded.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. Through the chair, it's mainly around resolution 4. The bit that needs to be discussed in the public excluded part is council strategy and tactics in relation to Waikato Water Dunwell and other regional and sub-regional partnerships. Council is in a very good position financially, asset-wise, and very attractive to a number of other potential partners. So it is important that strategy is discussed in confidence so that the chief executive can then take appropriate action to discuss that with the correct parties. And so that relates to resolution number 4. So the resolution number 4 needs to be discussed in the public excluded. The rest of it can be in the public. There are 2 presentations, one from Nick Davis, from Martin Jenkins, that can be the public part of the discussion. But there's also a small presentation from Ian Morton that needs to be in the public excluded part because that relates to resolution number 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. John?
If I may, my rationale that was behind this was the driver of transparency and the need for our ratepayers to be informed and their level of interest, which I'm sure have all heard in regard to the topic of how the 2 waters or 3 waters will be managed going forward. So, I think a satisfactory resolution of this would be to maintain it in PX for this discussion. But I think at the conclusion of our discussions today, we should spend some time in looking at the detailed aspects of this that could be released in a public communication, and as to make sure that we are showing our willingness as a council to maintain high levels of transparency going forward.
Thank you, John. Rebecca, please.
Yeah, I'd absolutely support that. And I think with the public as well, just in this 3 waters, local waters done well space, there is a lot of confusion and a lot of sort of mistrust. So I absolutely endorse that.
I also was going to say that I was wondering about 4.2 and 4.4, whether they should be in public excluded. That's the Tetra Valley upgrade and the Thames Council office building. I simply raise that because it seems to me that the more informed the public they are, the more they understand. And that's the only reason I raise that.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so there's some debate about the appropriateness of some of these items being in public excluded. I think those are good points, Gary. What I'd like to suggest is, because we started with 4.5 and we've basically been presented by Mo with a couple of options, can we stay on 4.5? Get agreement on that and then come back to those other ones. So 4.5, if we look at item 4, and if we go to the items 1 through 3, the suggestion from Mo is that we could discuss those in public, which will help with that transparency, with keeping our public informed. The advice is, and I agree with it, that item 4 should be discussed in PX, and then we can make a decision around the rest of it as to, and I don't see too many reasons why we couldn't have 5, 6, and 7 in public as well. So those are the proposals. We either take the whole lot in public excluded, or we go items 1 through 3 in public and then go into public excluded for item 4. So my recommendation would be that we go 1, 2, 3 in public, and then we go into public excluded for item 4 onwards.
If you make that a motion, then I'll second that, because that's exactly how I think it should go.
I'll move that. So items 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7 in public. Can you see any issues with 5, 6, and 7 being in public? Or would the staff advice be that we keep 4 through 7 in public excluded, all of those?
What page are you looking at?
Page 401. And just bear in mind, team, that we are not in public excluded yet, so we can't go into any specifics about what
I perhaps make a suggestion, because of the importance of this, that we just take a 10-minute break while staff have the opportunity just to review that. The other option that could be considered is that we put all of it in PX, but we look at the amount of information that we would release afterwards.
And my only
I
comment
think
to that,
there's the two ways that we could go forward.
my only comment to that, John, is as soon as we shut the doors, and we've seen it before, the public, they want to hear the actual item rather than just things we choose to pick out of it. I'd like to be more transparent in that. Sounds funny coming from me, doesn't it, John?
No.
And actually just go as the mayor suggested.
I agree. It's just my nervousness in regard to making quick decisions around this and the full consideration of all aspects. So
That's a good point. Aileen, did you have some thoughts?
Oh, just that we hadn't given this any thought until about an hour ago. So I would appreciate a few minutes just to confer with Mo because we've got a presentation structured and we may just have to restructure that accordingly.
Deli, you okay?
I'm just going to suggest that as it's 12 o'clock, then staff could be given the lunch break to review this and that we resume our session at 12:30 in public and perhaps bring parts of item 4.5 to the beginning of our session and hold it publicly and then delay our PX till after we've had that conversation.
I'm okay with that, but this comes up on a regular basis that staff get asked to use their lunch break.
Yeah.
All this stuff. So I would suggest yes to that, but let's add the 10 minutes onto that so that staff get a break as well.
So, staff's going to consider 4.2 and 4.4 as well.
Are you comfortable to do that as well? So we need 10, 15 minutes. All right. So let's break for lunch and then back at 12:45, please. And then give staff some time to have a break and also to go through those things. All right. For those online, we'll be back at 12:45 p.m. Thank you.
Very interesting, for all the discussions.